Hi everyone. We are going to go through regulating emotions, what makes it hard, and some myths associated with what we can believe around emotions. So let's get started. We're going to be going through handouts 4 and 4A in your binders on emotion regulation. What makes it hard? There's this whole host of factors that this worksheet lists for us, and it all exists on a spectrum, right? So pieces of biology can make it hard for all of us to regulate emotion. Emotional sensitivity, or how we feel at a given time, is directly linked to our biology. It can be heritable or inherited, meaning that babies can differ too, and this can develop throughout the lifespan. I often think that emotional sensitivity is also linked to our physiology. And so the way that we feel emotions can definitely be linked to our biology because we can physically feel emotions differently than other people. For instance, our heart rate can increase at a different rate than other people, and our muscles can tense in a specific way. Some of us have the ability to feel inside our bodies slightly differently as well. We think that people who experience panic-like symptoms or really severe panic attacks have a different level of interoceptive awareness, or the ability to sense changes within their body differently or more sensitively than other humans. And high intensity emotions or high levels of sensitivity can get in the way of learning new skills, as well as using what we already know or recruiting skills that we've known. When we talk about emotional overload, we'll get back to this idea. Lack of skill is another piece that can play a role. We may not know how to change. We just don't know what we don't know and haven't been exposed to. We may not know how to reduce emotional intensity enough or regulate our emotions enough to even get to a place of change, to be able to change, or even to sense that we want to change. It's important to recognize that a lack of skill does not mean that you don't have the motivation, and that skills are definitely context dependent. And so sometimes some skills that we apply in a specific situation may not generalize to another situation or a different context. And so that lack of knowing what to do in a specific setting or context or situation can show up differently. Reinforcement. So we've been introduced to this idea that emotions have a function for us, that they can help us get what we want or what we need. When we get what we want, we learn that that behavior or that display of emotion works. And sometimes we don't learn it, frankly. Sometimes it's difficult to make those connections. They're just happening, and it takes some level of awareness and some recognition of those patterns to make the connections. And these emotions can be reinforced even when we don't want them to be. So when have we encountered this? If we were to take a step back and think about when this might be happening, when we are super angry, for instance, and we are trying to express ourselves and someone like a partner ends up giving in to what it is that we want, then we learn that expressing that anger is associated with getting what we want. With our children, maybe sometimes we notice that. I often think about the candy aisle, right? And if kiddo is like crying and screaming and throwing a temper tantrum and really wanting whatever it is that they shouldn't be putting in the candy aisle but is there, and we give them that, then the next time that we end up checking out, that is likely to be a go-to because the first time that it happened, we got the candy. Maybe we did this too. And so those kinds of reinforcing situations can really perpetuate what's happening, like can really make the emotional behavior happen again for ourselves and for others. Moodiness. So moodiness is kind of different for everyone, and I wonder what it looks like for you when you notice that it increases. And if we again are to take a step back and think, man, what does regulating emotion take in the first place? It takes energy, it takes effort, and it takes some level of willingness. And when moods, especially negative emotions, are high, it can be harder to use any form of wise mind, and it can make us really, frankly, not to say the word moody again, but like really not in the mood to. So moodiness, wherein either we're switching from high to low intensity or switching between emotions, which happens, right? It can be really difficult to have the wherewithal, the bandwidth to regulate emotions. Now, this idea of emotional overload, is a real one. I think it is when we really get it's taking it to another level, where when we get it stuck in a spiral, or when we're feeling the emotion and then our thoughts start to come in, we can really start to build that up. We can think of sobbing uncontrollably, or moments when that's happened, and where, again, this is all a spectrum. It can be really effective or cathartic to let all of that out. And at the same time, there can be times at which we are experiencing emotion so much that it feels like we are losing control, feeling out of control. This can also happen with anger. So emotional overload can make it difficult, again, to recruit skills or learn new ones. This is beyond the norm, sure, but certainly when it gets to that area of overload, it is difficult to use skills that we have, and it's difficult to learn new ones. And this last part brings us to myths. So worksheet 4A, I feel like I might be blocking this. Worksheet 4A lists some myths about emotions. So I'm going to ask us to pause for a sec. You can pause me here. Take a minute. Circle the ones that you believe. Quick pass, go with your gut. And then do a second pass and put a star by the ones that you think you believe when you're in emotion mind. And to check by the ones that persist, even if you're in a wise mind place. I think this is something that we can use for discussion when we all come together and realize that it's common to believe these myths, and they can change the way that we respond to situations. And so deconstructing those, this is step one in realizing that, like, these are false beliefs, and that although they're common, they can be changed. And I think that that will be a great place for us to start when we're together. Not really letting me get to this last piece here. So I'd like for us to think about a few things. What skills do you already have on board? Of these domains that we went through, of the things that get in the way of regulating emotions, which ones are big players for you? Is it the biology piece? Is it the reinforcement piece? What do you think is your biggest player? What do you think you have a handle on already? What are you already doing to regulate your emotions? And what do you think an area is where you want to take a first step? Okay, so I'll leave you with this, and I look forward to seeing you all. Thank you. I'm going to stop.